Hello everyone, today is 26th of February, now it's almost 9 o'clock in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for the day in which I'll share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. Second update will be on my Patreon page later on in this afternoon. If you are interested, you can check my Patreon, link is in the description box or in the pinned comment. And when it comes to schedule for this week of my programs, from Monday to Thursday, I'll have a first and second updates. First update is on YouTube and Rumble. Second updates will be on my Patreon page. In between updates, I will have headlines, short summary of the news that I will talk about in second update. And later on, 9 o'clock in the evening, Moscow time, I will have live streams on my Rumble channel, which will feature Telegram Reports program. It's a chat show, talk show, basically, with the news and also chat in real time with the members of our community. It's interesting stuff. So if you have not watched those live streams, please join today 9 o'clock evening on my Rumble. And well, that's been said, let's talk about news now. And first of all, short summary of the situation on Ukrainian battlefield. This is, by the way, my channel on Rumble. So please consider to subscribe. Link is also in the description box and in the pinned comment. And the map, a war map. Okay, let's go sector by sector. First is Kherson direction, where main hotspot on the western flank is of course Krinky settlement, which is under full Russian control by now. Although some channels, by the way, some channels are reporting here in Russia, Russian channels, that there might be some small groups of Ukrainian forces that are hiding in rubbles and are locked basically in the Krinky area. And because Ukrainian units are quite a number of Ukrainian units are still located in these islands on the Dnieper river, it is possible for these small groups to receive some reinforcement time to time, to receive some munition, and therefore well, that may be the case that there are some presence still in the Krinky area, although of course majority of this settlement is under full Russian control, and these small Ukrainian units cannot really influence the situation. This so-called Kherson counteroffensive or offensive of Kyiv regime failed, finished with miserable results for Kyiv regime. Also, by the way, last 2 weeks, about 2 weeks, Russian Defense Ministry counting Zaporozhye sector of the front line as a part of Kherson direction, but I will use Zaporozhye sector. And in this sector, main hotspot is of course Rabotina area. Half of this village is under Russian control. Northern parts are still controlled by Ukrainian units, and I guess it's a matter of I don't know, days, and the entire village will be under full Russian control. Maybe even before end of today, Russian side will establish full control over the Rabotina, and that will be end of Orekhov bridgehead as a whole. And I guess next point of attention of Russian armed forces will be Malaya Takmachka settlement, also Novodanilovka settlement, and Novoandreevka. These settlements can be seen as a kind of outskirts of Orekhov, and it's only a matter of time when Russian forces will basically begin their offensive in direction of Orekhov. Although I should mention once again that for now, at least for now, main task for Russian armed forces is not to not to territorial gains, but demilitarization of Ukrainian units that are loyal to Kyiv regime on the current line of contact. And therefore, there is no rush for Russian military personnel to advance. They can demilitarize Ukrainian units using current line of contact, and they are quite successful in this. When it comes to South Donetsk sector of the front line, main hotspots are, of course, Vremevsky salient, Vuhledar direction. By the way, Vuhledar direction will become one of the major hotspots, I guess, in upcoming weeks and months. And also, of course, Novomykhailovka, Paraskovyevka, Konstantinovka settlements. I guess it's also a matter of weeks max, and these settlements will become under full Russian control. Donetsk direction. On Donetsk direction, we have additional sector, which is Avdiivka sector, as a part of Donetsk direction. But for whatever reason, Russian Defense Ministry is classifying Avdiivka direction separately. You can see it in Defense Ministry's daily updates about progress of special military operation. And when it comes to Donetsk direction, of course, main hotspots are outskirts of Avdiivka. Yesterday, Russian military channels reported that Russian armed forces conducted offensive operation in direction of Toninka village, and at this point, according to some reports, forward units of Russian army are inside the village itself. This village is located northern western side from Severna settlement, which is already under full Russian control, and I guess it will not take long before Toninka will also be liberated by Russian forces. And also, by the way, after Petrovskaya or Stepovaya become under full Russian control on the northern flank of Avdiivka, of course, attention of Russian forces are now shifted towards Berdichi settlement, and I guess in upcoming days we will see activization of operations in direction of Berdichi. When it comes to Chisovyar direction or Bakhmut direction, well, main hotspot now is Krasnaya here in this sector. Russian armed forces conducting operation inside the Krasnaya village, although Ukrainian units are managing to hold out on their positions, at least for now. Krasnaya, by the way, is also known as Ivanovskaya. This village has also two names. But yet again, it's only a matter of time, and Russian units will establish control over the Krasnaya, and then, then Chisovyar is next, of course. And from northern side, the Russian forces are active again in Bogdanovka area, according to some military channels, and in direction of Grigorievka, which is quite understandable. Once Krasnaya will become under Russian control, I guess next point of active clashes between the sides will be this canal district of Chisovyar, which is on the eastern side of canal itself, and are kind of difficult to defend for Ukrainian forces. Although, as you can see, this settlement has high-rise apartments. It's quite a big district, some industrial zone, high-rising apartments, and it might not be. It might take some time for Russian units to establish control over the canal district. When it comes to northern sectors of the front line, in Siversk direction, by the way, Russian forces are conducting operations in direction of Belogorovka and are quite active again in this sector, although because of the difficulties in relief in this area, progress is quite slow. But I guess after Avdiivka was liberated, one of the main direction of Russian local scale offensive operations will be Siversk. Therefore, I expect furthermore intensification of clashes in Belogorovka area, also in Serebryanka forestry. This huge massive of forestry here on the northern side of Siversk, and from southern flank I expect Razdolovka to become under full Russian control in fairly short time. Also, by the way, of course, active clashes are taking place in direction of Yampolovka, Tarskoe. This is Krasny Liman sector of the front line, and the Terny, of course. Terny, Russian units are just several hundred meters away from these villages. And well, as I said quite a number of times before, I'm not quite sure if it's strategically or tactically important right now to establish control over these villages, because Terny and Yampolovka, for example, are located on the left bank of the Zhiribets river, and supply and support of Ukrainian garrisons in these villages are quite difficult for Ukrainian forces. Entirely, this area is under Russian artillery control, and therefore Russian units may use these two settlements. Also Tarskoe, by the way, on the southern side. This is Tarskoe, and on the northern side, Novosadover. Russian forces may use these settlements as some kind of small local trap for Ukrainian units, because until Russian forces are conducting offensive operations, until Russian side is trying to take out Ukrainian units or demilitarize Ukrainian units by artillery, by using artillery, drones, missile strikes, until these areas are formally under control of Kyiv regime, of course, they will be forced to send more and more reinforcement in these areas, and those additional units also can be neutralized step by step. And I guess that's what Russian forces are doing, because first reports about Russian advance in Yampolovka area, for example, we received several weeks ago, and since then Russian units did not really advance in the direction of Yampolovka, which may be at least partial indicator that well, Yampolovka already is used as a kind of local small-scale trap by Russian side, and same goes for Terny. Same goes for Terny. I guess at this point, main task for Russian units will be improvement of positions in Siversk direction. And by the way, Siversk is very important, because if you take a look at the map, without establishing control over the Siversk, it's going to be extremely difficult, if even possible, to advance in direction of last more or less capable defense line of Ukrainian armed forces on the line of contact, which is Kramatorsk-Slavyansk. This is Kramatorsk-Slavyansk, by the way, and this is Siversk. So, of course, if you want to conduct offensive in direction of this defense line, you have to have a control over the Siversk and surrounding areas. But yet again, right now for Russian armed forces, main task is to demilitarize Kyiv regime and the forces that are loyal to Zelensky and his criminal associates. And therefore, I don't think there is any rush on Russian side to conduct offensive operations. No, once Russian side quite effectively can use current line of contact, basically, and increase pressure on regular basis on Ukrainian units until Ukrainian armed forces will start to collapse. And some evidence is that Ukrainian defense lines are beginning to collapse. We already can see liberation of Avdiivka, and you remember how fast Avdiivka garnison was crushed. You remember what happened to settlements right next to Avdiivka, Stepove, Lastochkina, Severna, and now this other settlement is most likely will become under Russian control, Toninka village. And basically there are some, you know about progress of Russian armed forces in Orekhov-Bridgehead area, in Rabotina settlement. So it already seems like Ukrainian units are stretched in significant way and are tired or fed up really with this hostilities, and for whatever reason they are unable to hold on to the defense lines, at least in some directions. And at some point this will become a trend all along the front line. Trend may not be right word in regards to military conflict, but you get my point. We might see collapse of Ukrainian defense lines all along the front line, and then exactly the time when Russian armed forces will start large-scale offensive operations, decisive actions basically. And when it comes to Kupyansk direction, no significant changes on the line of contact. Main hotspots are still Sinkovka village here, by the way, which is, I mean, if you take a look at the map, I mean, it's not really big settlement, it's just geography of this settlement that makes it harder to conduct offensive, because from the southern side it's open fields, open terrain, and it's difficult to move around with large military units. And on the northern side it's a huge forestry it's a huge forestry, which also makes it difficult to conduct more or less large-scale military operations. But still Russian units are in control of the situation. Initiative is in Russian hands, and I guess it's only a matter of time, and eventually Sinkovka, of course, will become under full Russian control. And well, this is it when it comes to short summary of the situation on Ukrainian battlefield. No crucial changes right now for this moment, but I expect that maybe Rabotina and Toninka will become under Russian control even today, possibly, or definitely in upcoming several days. And well, now let's talk about some other news. And dear friends, of course, if you are interested in more detailed information about this local scale skirmishes on line of contact, I recommend military channels, and under this video in description box I have a recommendation list, and there are a number of military channels. There are links to quite a few military channels. You can check those. Military summary, for example, provides great detailed information, great volume of detailed information on daily basis. So I will continue with some other news. And TASS news agencies report here that head of Russian General Staff Gerasimov once again went to a zone of special military operation, and this time, and by the way, I shared on my Telegram video of this. So as you can see here, Gerasimov, live and well, with his assistants, his colleagues there, and yes, he, according to Russia's Ministry of Defense, Chief of the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces, Valery Gerasimov, visited the command post of the 58th Combined Arms Army of the Southern Military District and the Northern Military District Zone, and he heard reports on the situation on the contact line and presented some state of words. So yes, Gerasimov, who is not really media personality, is quite active recently. This is second time in last 2 weeks, I believe, when he is in media again, which is rare occasion, by the way. Let's continue with some other news now, and RIA Novosti's report also that director of CIA Burns visited Ukraine recently, last week, I believe, and he was trying to calm down his Ukrainian puppets because after US Congress deleted allocation of some $60 billion for Kyiv, seems like Zelensky and his criminal associates start panicking. And well, Washington find it necessary to send William Burns, head of CIA, to calm down their puppets in Kyiv. Quite interesting, quite interesting. Why they could not call? Maybe there was some other reason to send Burns. Maybe he went there to give strong warnings in person to Zelensky and to Ukraine's so-called secret services and military intelligence that they have to act according to orders from Washington, and maybe he give them warning that if anything will happen with the Western delegations that are visiting Kyiv, then they will be neutralized. Maybe that's the reason why Burns really went to Kyiv, because we all remember what happened with planned Macron's visit to France. That visit was postponed indefinitely, and on 24th of February there was a bunch of these so-called politicians and the leaders of the Western world that were visiting Kyiv for photo opportunities, photo ops. And I guess Burns' visit definitely had something to do with the security of those Western delegations. But yet again, this is my reading of picture, because official explanation that are provided by Western media, at least, is that Burns went to Kyiv to calm down leadership of local, Ukraine's secret services, Ukraine's regime there, and reinforce US support to Kyiv regime. But I mean, for this, why they have to go to Kyiv, by the way? Langley is far away from Kyiv, isn't it? Burns could easily take phone and call Zelensky, call head of Ukraine's SBU or military intelligence. That was it. But because he went in person, most likely he was giving warnings to Kyiv regime not to even think about conducting terrorist attack on Western delegations, to blame then Russia. Maybe sometime in the future we will learn some more about it. Excuse me. RT's report, by the way, that we have official confirmation about the presence of Abrams, US-made Abrams main battle tanks in Avdiivka direction on the front line. And in the interview with the TASS news agency, Igor Kimakovsky, advisor to head of Russia's Donetsk People's Republic, said that this type of tanks, Abrams tanks, have been seen northwest of city of Avdiivka, which was recently liberated by Russian forces. And by the way, of course, we all already know that Abrams tanks were presented in Avdiivka direction. I share few videos of Abrams tanks in that sector, but it's always good to have some official confirmation of information that you already know, but from independent sources. So yes, Abrams tanks were presented on the battlefield. The question now is how many of those tanks really are on the battlefield or close to the zero line. If it was a photo op on part of Kyiv regime, if they send 1 or 2 tanks to make some videos and then move them out, that's one story. But if there are like 10 or 15 Abrams tanks at least presented on the battlefield really to participate in hostilities, then I guess it's only a matter of days and we will see first footage of destroyed Abrams battle tanks, maybe even captured ones. Eventually it will happen, but question is when. TASS news agency's report that head of EU diplomacy, Josep Borrell, made a statement that in next several months will be decisive in Ukrainian conflict, and everything may be decided Interesting statement on part of Borrell, especially on the background when, for example, United Kingdom is already allocating funds, some $300 million, by the way, for 2025 to supply Kyiv regime with the weapons. So it's somewhat confusing what Borrell knows about next several months that gives him a right to say that next several months Ukrainian conflict may be decided. I don't know, but London clearly has some other information, and they are already allocating funds for 2025. I don't know. Interesting. If Ukrainian defense lines will collapse in next month or two, of course, Borrell in that case will be correct, because once we will see collapse of Ukrainian armed forces on the front line in the large scale, by the way, I'm not talking about just one direction or two directions or one sector. I'm talking about in general, when we see collapse of Ukrainian armed forces. At that time, I guess we will see also Russian large-scale offensive operations. That may be end of upcoming spring, maybe early summer, who knows. And in that case, Borrell will be correct. But if somehow Kyiv regime manages to strengthen up its military defense lines, then I guess this conflict might continue for additional year in 2025 also, if not more. So I don't know. Let's wait and see. Maybe Borrell knows something that we don't. Artists report here that Germany is still undecided on the long-range weapons for Ukraine, according to Foreign Minister of Germany, Annalena Baerbock. Very strange statement from German diplomat. I mean, how funny is it, isn't it, when you call Annalena Baerbock diplomat? But I mean, she is a foreign minister after all. But anyway, just a few days ago, German Bundestag voted in favor of providing Kyiv regime with long-range weapon systems. And I believe, even though in the bill itself there was not a single word about Taurus long-range missiles, cruise missiles, I believe that's exactly the weapon that German MPs voted for to be sent to Kyiv regime. And if decision not yet been made about deliveries of those long-range weapon systems to Kyiv, maybe because Berlin is waiting what will Washington say. Berlin is just waiting green light from Washington, that's all. And because, according to some reports, US leadership is considering to transfer to Kyiv regime long-range Abrams missiles. I guess it's only a matter of time, and Germany will receive this. German's government will receive this green light, and we will see Abrams long-range missiles and Taurus long-range missiles being introduced to this conflict, which will definitely be next level of escalation. Especially because those missiles theoretically can carry tactical nuclear weapons and can strike for, really deep inside Russian territory on hundreds of kilometers. Yesterday, during the live stream on YouTube, during the traditional live stream, one of the members of our community asked me a question. I mean, why it's any difference when Russia is using Iskander missiles that also can carry nuclear warheads if necessary? That's not issue. And why Taurus missiles becoming issue or long-range Abrams missiles? The point is that Russia is not targeting NATO member states, isn't it? That's a difference. When the NATO member states are providing Kyiv regime with the weapon systems that are targeting Russian territory and are used against Russia. It's a huge difference, isn't it? And, well, one may hope that Washington, Germany will not escalate this far, will not send long-range nuclear-capable missiles to Kyiv regime, but I'm a little skeptical. Most likely, those weapons will be sent, and we will see some next level of escalation between Russia and NATO. And warnings already have been given by Moscow to the West. Quite clear warnings. So, will Western ruling elites listen? Yet again, I'm skeptical. I don't think they will listen, but time will tell. Anyway, by the way, Zelensky yesterday has had some press conference, and to my surprise, bunch of Russian channels, by the way, reported about these crazy statements that Zelensky was making during that press conference. I read number of those statements, and I mean, it's obvious, by the way, that this individual is really out of touch with reality and just lying without shame. And I did not report about Zelensky's press conference on my Telegram because, I mean, if I want to report about statements of clowns, then I will make another channel with comedy in it, with some comedy stuff in it. But my Telegram channel is about news, and I'm trying to keep it as serious as possible, and therefore I didn't report about these crazy statements of Zelensky, this bloody clown. But plenty of Russian channels did, to my surprise, really, because I mean, come on, man. You can go in same way, then with same effectiveness, you can go in any psychiatric clinic and start reporting statements of patients of psychiatric clinic. It's not news. It would not be. It would not have any news value in it. Same goes for Zelensky and his statements. And to demonstrate what I mean, by the way, just look at this news. RT also failed for this nonsense, man. And they also pay attention to Zelensky. And, well, just look at this. Only 31,000 Ukrainian troops have been killed in 2 years of fighting with the Russian forces. Ukraine's so-called President Vladimir Zelensky has declared, alleging a casualty figure far below even their estimates of Kyiv's Western benefactors. So yes, that's how crazy and deranged and out of touch with reality Zelensky is. And by the way, Ukrainians are outraged themselves by statements of Zelensky. So, I mean, can you trust any even single word that comes from Kyiv regime? No, it's just not possible. Unfortunately, this conflict had happened. Western ruling elites managed to provoke this conflict and use Ukraine against Russia as its proxy. And of course, it's a tragedy that we have this civil war now on our hands. And it is civil war, by the way. This conflict between Russia and Ukraine definitely has in it elements of civil war, undoubtedly. I spoke about this many times, and recently when Russian President Putin mentioned that this conflict definitely has elements of civil war, which is true. So it's a tragedy, of course, but when it comes to factual information about conflict itself and casualty numbers, well, I would understand if Kyiv regime will say nothing about their own casualties. During the conflicts, sides are not really reporting about casualty numbers or trying to minimize casualty numbers. It's the usual stuff during their whole history of human civilization. But for whatever reason, Zelensky made decision to claim that it's only 31,000 military personnel died on the battlefield. which is, well, as I said, man, it's total nonsense. Real number of casualties on part of Ukrainian forces are at least 10 to 15 times more, up to 500,000, by the way, from 300 to 500,000, and everybody knows this. Everybody knows this. And even Ukrainians are outraged by these crazy statements of Zelensky, but, you know. And that's why I didn't pay any attention to his press conference, by the way. I don't care about press conferences of clowns, really. I don't. Anyway, let's continue. Artists report that the G7 pledges to continue bankrolling Ukraine. Money will be focused on reconstruction and Kyiv's budget gap, according to the group's statement. Okay, G7 countries will, I guess, pay for another 40 to 50 billion, because that's the budget deficit of Ukraine right now. It's up to 40%, if not more, by the way, of Ukraine's budget. And, well, of course, they're going to continue to bankroll their proxy that is quite effectively used against Russia already 2 years. So, not really surprises here. RIA Novosti's report that US, by the way, had 12 secret intelligence stations on the border with Russia in Ukraine and in Poland before special military operation began. And this, you know what? Let's translate entirely this news, and I will read it for you just to be more precise. So, over the past 8 years, the United States, with the support of the CIA, has created 12 secret facilities on Ukrainian territory near its border with Russia. Ukraine has become one of Washington's most important intelligence bases in the fight against Moscow. New York Times reported, citing former and current officials in Ukraine, the United States, and Europe. Today, this has turned Ukraine into one of the Washington's most important intelligence partners in the fight against the Kremlin. The interception post is part of a network of spy bases created with the support of CIA over the past 8 years and includes 12 secret sites along the Russian border. It's not just in Ukraine, but also in Poland, by the way. This basis, as I understand. So, yes, Ukraine was used against Russia for years and years, by the way, since 2014 for sure, and even before that. If you think Ukraine was not used against Russia before that, I mean, no, it was. And in 2014, after this bloody armed coup d'etat, after which Yanukovych was removed from the power and neo-Nazis established as a main force in Ukraine, Yanukovych itself, by the way, was an asset of, and I believe he's still asset of Western secret services. And why he is in Russia and why he is free, I have no idea, man. But I believe Yanukovych was acting on the orders of Western ruling elites. He is not pro-Russian in any way, shape or form. He is a criminal and should be prosecuted. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, he is not prosecuted in Russia. He ran in Russia, by the way. He was a president, and during his presidency, these neo-Nazis gained power. Those neo-Nazis existed in Ukraine before, of course. They become forced little by little since collapse of Soviet Union. One may say even before that, but those neo-Nazis become armed fucking force. Sorry for my French. During the presidency of Yanukovych. So why he allowed this to happen? He did not know what was going on, that there was a training basis in Baltic states, in Poland, in Ukraine itself, in the Western Ukraine, when neo-Nazis had the training camps. He didn't know? Of course he knew, by the way. Of course he knew, but he was asset of CIA, I believe, and the traitor. And he was used and then thrown away. And I don't know why, but he is now free in Russia, when he should be in prison for the rest of his life for crimes that he committed against Russia and against Ukraine. So yes, Ukraine was used against Russia by Western ruling elites for decades, by the way, for decades. Since the collapse of Soviet Union, basically. And we have, well, and of course, last 8 years also, and New York Times is basically confirming this information that is already known for us, here at least in Russia. RIA Novosti's report that on the border with between Poland and Ukraine, some 24,000 trucks are blocked right now, and this queue is increasing as time goes by. Yet another escalation on the border between two countries. And well, this time Polish farmers are blocking roads, not just highways but also railways, and well, they have every right to protect themselves and their businesses. So I am in support of Polish farmers. You know, continue guys. It will be even better if you will block deliveries of weapons to Kyiv regime. Well, I will applaud that for sure. And by the way, Kyiv, you're gonna see what kind of statements officials in Kyiv are now making about Poland and Polish farmers, man. They are cursing them left and right. It's only a matter of, I don't know, man, days, and Zelensky himself will start cursing Poland, Polish people, and well, relationships between this Poland and this quasi-state and the name of Ukraine gonna only deteriorate. It's just inevitable, because after all, we all understand that it's a matter of time when Poland will try to establish control over the former its territories in the Western Ukraine. And of course, when it will happen, relationships between two sides will quite fast become hostile, really hostile, and therefore I guess it is highly likely that Poland will be first country in Europe which will start deporting military age male Ukrainians into Ukraine, so that they would be mobilized and sent to the front line to die on the Eastern Front, so that when they will establish control of the Western regions, they will receive as minimal resistance as possible. Just, you know, mark my words. It is highly likely that Poland will be first who will start deport, under whatever pretext, by the way, Ukrainian male refugees or male residents of Poland that are military aged. And this conflict between two sides are not going away. It will only escalate. Let's continue. And Interfax news agency is reporting that Israeli militaries presented to a government plan of evacuation of Rafa. Rafa is, of course, in the southern Gaza. And, well, Israeli government made a statement that if there will be no peace agreement on temporary ceasefire, if there will be no agreement with Hamas on temporary ceasefire in upcoming days, then well, Israeli military will receive authorization to conduct military operation in southern, to continue basically military operations in southern Gaza. Question is where those people gonna go, because I mean, southern Gaza is supposed to be safe place for Palestinians, including hundreds of thousands of Palestinians that moved from the northern Gaza Strip. And now, if Israeli army will start, and when Israeli army will start large-scale military operations in the southern Gaza Strip, then I mean, where these people gonna go? I mean, civilians. In Egypt, what kind of evacuation plan IDF has? It's a secret. They're not gonna tell us, but I mean, if we take a look at the map, only way these Palestinians can go is Egypt. And once this will happen, I don't think Israel will ever allow Palestinians to go back to their homeland. TASS news agency's report, and some may say, you know what, for now only Rafah is a zone of military operation. Therefore, I mean, civilians can go somewhere else in the southern Gaza, somewhere else, but not stay in Rafah. But after Rafah, there will be some other settlement, then other settlement, then other settlement, and eventually these 2 million people will be concentrated on the borderline, exactly on the borderline with Egypt. And well, and at that point, Israeli army may say, Netanyahu's government will say, well, we have to conduct military operation on borderline also, because I mean, we think there are some Hamas fighters there. And these hundreds of thousands, I mean, up to 2 million Palestinians eventually will be forced into Egypt. It is highly likely, and you know my take on this conflict. I said from straight away, when this escalation started, that most likely Netanyahu's government will try to implement Karabakh scenario on the Gaza Strip, which means eviction basically of local residents from the region. Forceful eviction. Okay. Let's continue. And the TASS news agency's report that Prime Minister of recognized by UN Yemeni government is visiting Moscow. Ahmed Awad Ben Mubarak, and of course main topic of negotiations between Prime Minister of Yemen and Moscow will be situation in Yemen, escalation in Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, Middle East in general, of course. And I guess Prime Minister will ask Russian side to use its influence on Ansar Allah movement. And by the way, Yemen is divided on two parts mainly. Northern part is controlled by government that is internationally recognized, and southern part is controlled by Yemeni Houthis or Ansar Allah movement. And well, Ahmed Awad Ben Mubarak probably will ask Moscow to use its influence on Ansar Allah movement, maybe through Iran, to de-escalate situation. But yet again, Moscow already made statements that it condemns these missile strikes from Houthis on commercial vessels. Although Moscow not going to support any military actions against Yemen, and Moscow didn't support any military actions against Yemen. Moscow is calling for de-escalation, all the parties that are involved in confrontation. And by the way, if Tehran was unable to stop Ansar Allah movement from escalating, then how Moscow gonna influence this movement? I have no idea. Because if any third party has any influence on Ansar Allah movement, it's Iran. And at least for now, they were unable to stop Ansar Houthi fighters to strike this shipping routes in Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea. But anyway, any diplomatic step, any move towards some de-escalation is a good move, good decision. So good that sides are trying to de-escalate. RIA Novosti's report that President of Belarus, Lukashenko made a statement that he will participate in 2025's presidential elections in Belarus. Not really surprised. And I guess he will be next new old president of Belarus after 2025 presidential elections. Also, articles report that, well, according to British Prime Minister, West should be bolder in seizing Russian assets. So Ukraine's Western backers should step up efforts to confiscate Russian assets frozen abroad in order to aid Kyiv. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has said, okay, and quote here, we must be bolder in hitting the Russian war economy. Our collective sanctions have deprived Russia of $400 billion for the war efforts, enough to finance the invasion for another 4 years. And we must be bolder in seizing the hundreds of billions of frozen Russian assets, the Prime Minister stated. Well, okay, just do it, man. Just do it. At this point, I mean, it's clear that professionals in the Western financial institution are time after time warning these politicians, so-called politicians and political leaders of the West, not to even think about stealing Russian assets. But it seems like those politicians and so-called leaders not gonna listen, and today or tomorrow or day after they're gonna steal frozen Russian assets anyway. And of course it will be devastating for whatever is remains from reputation of the Western financial system and banking system, but they're gonna do it anyway. So why so much talk, man? I'm a little tired by commenting and sharing news about these frozen Russian assets in the West. Just steal it or and end this story, man. Why so much talk? Rishi Sunak, just do it, man. We know here in Russia that we will never see those assets ever. Everyone understands this. And therefore, we just don't give a damn no more. I mean, I don't think anybody has any doubts here in Russia that you will eventually steal those assets anyway. So, I mean, it's unfortunate that Russia will lose 300 billion, but it's already has happened. So, there is no point for us to, further focus on that matter. And why you are continuing to, make this mess from this stuff, man? Just steal it and get some rest, man. Buy some, I don't know, mansion somewhere, man. In Miami, if you want to, or in California, on the Mars, man. Who cares? Really. This is, I mean, tragic comedy, by the way. It's. I don't know, man. World is in a dark place, really, especially Western world. TASS news agencies report that, according to Politico, by the way, partners and allies of US are protesting behind the scenes about secondary sanctions of the US against companies that are having business with Russian partners, Russian companies, Russian businesses, and this is a big deal. This is a big deal for Western businesses, and of course, allies of US mainly are Western states and Western businesses. And it is important topic because while Western businesses, significant number of Western businesses are forced to stay out of Russian market, other countries, businesses from other countries in this world are doing exactly the opposite. They are using this opportunity and establishing themselves on the Russian market in a big way, especially China, of course, but also other countries, by the way. And eventually, when in 10, 15 or 20 years time, whenever relationships between Russia and Western states will become will reach working conditions again, and it will happen, I guess, if Western ruling class will not provoke nuclear war and the end of everything. And at that point, Western businesses may find it just about impossible to re-establish themselves on Russian markets. So it is understandable that they have some issues with US, they have issues with London, I guess, also, and Brussels, by the way, for these secondary sanctions, but you know, it is what it is. It is what it is. I don't think Western ruling elites or Western ruling class gonna listen to anybody. And they will not stop until they are stopped forcefully. That's the main point. Interfax is reporting that Parliament of Hungary will vote today on accession of Sweden into the NATO. I guess we already know how this voting will go down. If there will be quorum, if MPs will attend voting process, then of course Sweden will receive green light to join NATO, and they will. It's only matter of formalities at this point, and it was always matter of formalities, by the way. Sweden was a part of anti-Russian military coalition anyway, even without being part of NATO. And now it will become part of NATO officially. Okay, that does not changes much for Russia in strategical terms. Maybe just a couple of more Russian nuclear warheads will receive some coordinates of strategic points in Sweden. That's all changes that Russian side will make, I guess. There will be some coordinates that will end up in this warheads, nuclear warheads, from Sweden, in case military conflict will erupt between Russia and NATO. That's all, really. And same goes for Finland, by the way. Finland for quite a while acting now as an enemy of Russia, and it don't really makes any crucial difference is Finland officially part of NATO or anti-Russian military coalition or not. And finally, by the way, a news about some civil war inside the Rothschild clan. There are two banks, by the way. One is in France and one is in Sweden, that have direct roots to Rothschild clans, world famous Rothschild clans. And these financial institutions are now in a kind of conflict, in a kind of civil war between each other. And eventually, and they are fighting for the same piece of cake, let's say. And well, I guess in fairly short time, these two financial institutions, Edmond, the Rothschild Group, and Rothschild and the Co, will unite and become a bigger player on the market. Let me give you a few sentences. So Rothschild's families, Swiss and the French branches, are battling for dominance in the wealth management industry, which is causing tensions and sparkling speculations of merger that would significantly impact the global financial landscape. Bloomberg wrote this. And as I said, there are Swiss private bank, Edmond de Rothschild Group, and smaller French lender, Rothschild and Co. And they are remaining only banks with the direct links to the family whose name has been synonym for wealth and power for more than 2 centuries. Well, if you want some numbers, by the way, the Paris-based Rothschild and Co., run by Alexander de Rothschild, 43-year-old 7th generation leader of this bank, smaller bank of those two. The bank had over 102 billion euro or 110 billion euro in assets under management in mid-2023. However, it has been growing rapidly by opening more offices in the same segment, rivaling its Swiss pair. An aggressive expansion came as the Swiss-based Edmond de Rothschild financial institution, led by Baroness Ariane de Rothschild, grapples with the stagnating business. The article stated that at the end of 2022, assets under management of this Swiss-based bank branch of Rothschild clan were down to 158 billion Swiss francs, which is 179 billion US dollars, from 178 billion Swiss francs. And by the way, what is interesting, even if these two Rothschild branches will unite, they will be still smaller, significantly smaller than giants in the business. And giants are Morgan Stanley and the UBS Group AG. Also, Swiss private banks Julius Baer and Banque Pictet. So about these Swiss banks, I never heard before, but Morgan Stanley and UBS Group, they are giants. Yes, I heard about them, of course. And what is interesting, by the way, rumors are that Rothschild clan is one of the most powerful and rich in this world, and I guess their power is somewhat hidden, because at least officially that's funds that they are operating through these two banks, at least, which is significantly smaller than major players on the market. But I guess maybe these major players, Morgan Stanley and UBS Group, maybe they are also run by Rothschilds. Who knows? Whenever you hear names like Rothschild, Rockefellers, Morgans, DuPonts, and so on, well, some shadow world government comes to the mind, isn't it? Because that's a rumors that I guess everybody heard one time or another, that world is run by these shadow groups, shadow clans, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, and the rest of them. But I don't know, really. I just have no idea, man. Of course, world under significant influence of powerful, immensely rich groups that gained power because of their riches. I have no doubts about it, but who exactly runs show, I don't know. I would like to know, but I will never. Probably. Not probably, for sure, man. Who gonna tell me how this world is run? And this is it for now. Well, quite a long update. You may not believe me, but I was thinking to make this update some 30 minutes long, 35 minutes long, but it's more than an hour. But hopefully you will find it interesting, informative, useful, and if so, please consider to click that like button and leave some commentary just about anything, any topic. More likes and comments, and on both platforms, by the way, on Rumble and on YouTube, more likes and more comments probably will help me to deal with the algorithm and reach wider audience, which will be, of course, helpful to further develop this project. And for very same reason, if you can, please share links to my videos or my channel video friends on any of the platforms that you are actively using. And finally, if you think this small media project of mine with several channels and several programs is interesting, useful, informative, and deserves to exist, or if you want to support my work, you can do it with small donations through PayPal, buy me a coffee, or by subscribing to my Patreon page, on which, by the way, I have regular updates, regular extra content. So you can see links under this video in the description box or in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Have a great day, successful week, and take care.